Hello everyone, this is Adam for RealHomeRecording.com, and in today's video I'm going back to the very basics, hooking up an audio interface from scratch. The first thing you want to do, so I have a M Audio Fast Track Ultra. The first thing that you want to do is throw away the CD that came with this thing, unless you have like a DAW that came with it. Throw it away because it's going to have old drivers. So first, I'm going to go to the website, and if you don't know what the website is, it's on the box. If it's not on the box, or if what's on the box is wrong, then you might need to just go to Google, which I'm on right now, and I'm going to type in Fast Track Ultra drivers, and hopefully it pops up here. Okay, so I'm running a Windows 7 computer, 64-bit, and now I'm searching, okay, Mac releases, so this will be under here, under Windows releases. And, okay, good, Windows 7, and that was released in October, so I'm going to download this and wait for it to download. And it's almost finished. Come on, there we go. All right, so now drag this out of the zip file onto the desktop and double click the driver file, click yes to run it because it's a security feature. And now we are waiting. Okay. So as you can see, x64, because it's a 64-bit computer, or operating system. I accept. Of course, I'm not reading all this. It could say my firstborn is going to Avid, but I don't know. And then install. You want to do this before putting the interface into the USB for the first time. Always install drivers before hardware. That's just how it goes. So we're still copying files, and eventually this thing will probably ask me to restart the computer. Okay, it's asking, do you want to install this device? Of course I do. But again, just another Windows security feature. And another one. I could have just hit the check mark, but I didn't want to. And now we are installed. So actually, it didn't ask me to restart, but I'm going to do that anyway. So we'll be back after it restarts. The computer's restarted, the driver's installed, now it's time to hook the thing up. And I actually had issues with this USB cable, so I'm hoping that doesn't cause a problem. Now, this audio interface comes like that. Go ahead and zoom in if you want. Actually, this bag did not come with it. The bag is with the broken parts, but it came in this box. This is the power adapter, USB cable, interface. So I'm going to take the interface. This is hard to kind of instruct you guys on and not do it naturally. Windows popping up with their messages. Okay, so pulling this out. I'm just going to pull it out how I normally would. So here's your interface. Go ahead and zoom in, please. Okay. So starting left to right, this is an XLR input with a 1/4-inch input for instruments. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1 and 2 are the ones with instrument inputs. 3 and 4 are just XLR. These buttons control whether they're line input or microphone. I'm sorry, whether it's front or rear. So if I click this on input 1, the input 1 on here will be activated. But if I declick it, the front input will be activated. And then we also have over here This is the gain for each input, or the preamp level, or volume level for the newbies. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we have our main output control. If this is hooked to speakers, which we'll get to another video, that's controlled with this. And then down here we have 2 headphone inputs. Can you see that? Okay, so again, volume, all these are volume controls. And then these lights are status indicators. So power, phantom power, and then MIDI in and out. And then your headphone inputs 1 and 2. I think that's it. Oh, you can also pull each one of these knobs out, which actually probably best to show you this way. So that's in, you can pull it out. And what that does is it adds a 20 decibel pad, meaning the volume levels decrease by 20 decibels. So I don't know if the camera can see that or not, but it's pulled out, and make sure you don't pull it too hard because you could break it. And then on the back here, we have more inputs and outputs. This is your power button. This is phantom power, the phantom power switch, which if you have a microphone that requires phantom power, obviously it needs to be on. That goes to all the XLR inputs. Phantom power only goes through XLR on this interface. You can't use it through 1/4-inch cables. Phantom power just does not work that way. It's always through XLR. And then we have our output, all 1/4-inch cables. We have our power input for plugging into the wall. Our USB input, so that you can run the USB off your computer without having to plug it into a power supply. Now, when you do that, only your first 2 inputs work, and I think headphone 1, and that's it. You can't use anything else besides that. But I may be wrong about that. And also MIDI works, I believe. So MIDI's actually the next thing. MIDI input, MIDI output. Actually, I said that backwards. MIDI input, MIDI output. It's labeled, so. And then we have our SPDIF input, which is a digital input. It gives you 2 more inputs for running off like another interface or another digital to analog or analog to digital converter. I've used this a lot of times when interfacing with my other audio interface to get 2 extra channels. And one's input, one's output, and you need to have both. It's basically an RCA connection, but you need to have a good quality RCA cable. And they do recommend SPDIF coax is what it's called. So just so that it's exactly at, I think it's 75 ohms or something like that. Anyway, next we have inputs 1 through 6. Again, to enable these for inputs 1 through 4, you need to press the button in on the front of the interface. And then finally, we have 2 inserts, which is a whole topic unto itself, but basically this allows us to plug in external hardware like a compressor, an equalizer, a reverb unit. That'll go into here. And it's actually, this inserts is not a very common feature on low-end interfaces, so this is actually really cool to have. So now that I've explained all that, zoom out if you haven't already, camera guy. We are going to plug it into the computer finally, and actually plug it in. Yes, I do have a power output. So first, I'm going to plug it in. Again, hopefully you guys can see this, and I can hold it steady into the power. Zoom in if you can't see it. Into the power, like that. And then I'm going to plug it into this power strip under here. And so that now that's on. I have my phantom power switch off. And then I'm going to plug my USB cable. Again, I'm hoping this works. If it doesn't, then I'll just go get another cable. But this is going to go into the back right here. I'm looking at my connector here, and the label side should be up and in there like that. I'll do it sideways so you can see it. Okay, upside down actually. And then into the USB input on the computer. And then now, power switch. And now our power goes on, and our computer will start doing something. Yeah, here it is. It's installing the driver down here. So again, we have our blue LED showing that we have power. If I were to switch, can you zoom in, please? If I were to switch phantom power on, this is what happens. The red light comes on. Hopefully you can see that. And if I were to put MIDI in and out, it would also light those lights up. Anytime I press the keys, I believe, is when those lights go on. But I don't really use MIDI that much, so I don't really know. So that's it for that. Now, back into installing software. Now that that's in, if you don't have DAW software, which I'm going to assume you do not, DAW stands for Digital Audio Workstation software like Pro Tools, Cubase, Logic, and I use a program called Reaper. So I'm going to go to reaper.fm, or if you Google Reaper, it should show, or Reaper Audio, it should show up. And I'm going to download Reaper, newest version, Windows 64-bit. And it's a very small file. A lot of DAWs are actually huge programs. And Reaper is one of the smallest ones. I think it's under 10 megabytes. Yeah, 10 megabytes, yep. Okay, so now that is downloaded in a second. Come on. Okay, so now I'm going to install Reaper. It's running slower because this is a slower computer than my main one, and it has screen capture going at the same time. So just install with default options. Okay, it's finished. Run Reaper now. Sure. Click yes. Reaper's starting up. Okay, and go to options, preferences. First thing we want to do, go to audio devices. We're going to change audio. Now, if you install Reaper for the very first time, which this computer did have Reaper, and I think it saved its preferences, so that's why it didn't ask me right away. Reaper will ask you, do you want to set up your audio device? And you hit yes. The other way to get to audio devices, I hit cancel. You can just go up here in the upper right corner, click this, and audio devices comes right up. So we're going to change our audio system because this Fast Track Ultra device supports ASIO, and you know that because it's on the back of the box. ASIO is an interface that allows for low latency meaning when you hit a note on like a guitar or when you're singing, it'll play it back very fast. Very important for recording music. Windows default direct sound is way slow. ASIO is very fast and is necessary for audio production. So I'm going to change the audio system under here to ASIO. And already it shows my M-Audio Fast Track Ultra. Whatever your interface is, it'll show that. So what I want to do is set up so that I have every input enabled. So everything, including the SPDIF inputs, which is 7 and 8. And then my output range, really whatever I want it to be, I could do all of them. And then here's some other important settings. Request sample rate. I want to do 96 kilohertz. So I'm going to type in 96000. So 96,000. And then click request block rate. And you can change this to, I'll keep it at 256, but depending on how fast your computer is, you can take this down to like 64 and it'll work fine. Next up, I'm gonna hit ASIO configuration, and this pops up, which this is brand new to me. This is brand new drivers that I'm not familiar with, but I'm gonna figure this out along with you guys. So first we have, the first thing I want to do is go to setup. My buffer size is at 250, or was at 256. Now I'm going to put it back to 256 with the slider. Sample rate needs to be changed to 96,000, just like we had in Reaper. And internal or SPDIF. Now we're going to keep it on internal because we don't have another interface connected to this. If we did, we might need to change it to SPDIF. But for this, our clock source is going to be internal. And that's it for now. Now, what this control panel software does is it allows us to hear different inputs. So analog output 1 and 2, which is probably going to be your main output. If I wanted to hear input 1, I would bring, or input 1 and 2 are locked by default. I can unlock them with this button down here, I would assume. Again, this is the very first time I'm seeing this software. Okay, yeah, so that unlocked it, and I can control what I'm hearing based on the output. So what this is good for is, if you were recording, let's say, 4 different musicians, and you have your different outputs. If musician number 1 only wanted to hear the singer and the guitar player, we could have it so that they're only hearing the singer and guitar player based on whatever input they're plugged into. And the drummer could only hear the bass guitar and the rhythm guitar and nothing else. Whatever they want, and we control it with these volume inputs. You know, again, all these are separate. So, you know, input 1 can have that. See how I'm flipping around? And it just gives us all a different, they call it a headphone mix. So by default, my control in the studio, I want all these inputs and all these inputs at the maximum because I want to hear everything. And that's it for now. I'm not going to really get into this control panel in detail, but that's all you need to know for now. What I'm going to do is plug a microphone into this finally. So let's move this box out of the way. So we have our XLR cable, and we have our female side. We know it's female because of the holes. Ha ha ha, but that's actually why it's called female. And then our male side has the prongs because, you know, male parts. So our female side plugs into the microphone because the microphone has male output. In case you're wondering, this is an Electro Voice 767A microphone. So again, the XLR cable, which this handle actually got pushed out somehow. And now I gotta line it up. This is what I love about this microphone. So I gotta line up the slot so it can get, the XLR cable can go in. XLR cable has a top switch here, and it also has a notch. I don't know if the cameraman can see that or not. Give me a thumbs up if you can. That little slot here. Okay, yeah. So that's gonna align with the microphone slot, which is right here. There's only one slot for every input. So go in like that, which this is not going in all the way because of this stupid microphone's warm grip thing, and I only have one XLR cable that actually makes this click. So you want to hear a click, and this thing is not clicking because of that issue. Actually, I'm gonna align this. Okay, now it's clicking. There we go. So now it's in. It's locked in, and now we're gonna send an input. So it is gonna be plugged into the front here. making sure the switch is out to input number 1. And on the male side, we have, again, this hole right here that indicates the top of the cable. Any XLR input, you're going to see 3 prongs where you can slide this in, and you want to have the top, and on this cable there's an arrow, and it's going to go in there like so. And that stops. Okay, now what we're going to do, go back, we're closing up the interface, and I want to make sure, I'm going to hit OK, change my project to 24-bit 96, which is not set to right now. So I'm sorry, I'm going ahead of myself. Go to File, go to Project Settings, and then we're going to click Project Sample Rate, make sure it's checked, and change this to 96,000 Hertz, just like our interface was set to. Hit OK. Up here it changes to 24-bit 96. Now if it doesn't say 24-bit for some reason, go back to your project settings, go over to Media, change the Media tab, change the wave bit depth to 24-bit PCM, which is what our interface supports. If your interface only supports 16-bit, get into the 2000s, people. There's no interface out there that doesn't support 24-bit. I don't know what interface you're using, but go buy one for $25 and get 24-bit. Again, going back to preferences, just to make sure that everything else is set up properly. And it looks like, okay, it looks like it is. And I'll go back to my ASIO control panel to make sure this is set up. Okay, so now that we're finished setting up the microphone, now I'm going to briefly show you guys how to record a track. So double click here, that adds a track, or on the keyboard you can press Control T and that adds another track. But I'm going to delete the last track that we did by just clicking it and pressing delete on the keyboard. And the next thing we're going to do is select our input. And we're in input 1, so we're going to click this meter right here and make sure our input is set to analog in number 1. If it was number 2, we would obviously pick number 2. So number 1, and then we're going to hit the record arm button. And now at this point, we can see we do have a signal. We do have a signal, but it's not loud enough. So if you watch my video, which I think I'll put next, it is next in the playlist of how to do this from scratch. What are proper audio recording levels? I like to record with peaks between -18 and -10, maxing out at -10. And you can see that on the meter. I'll expand this so you can see it even better. But right here, actually on here, it's -12. But see, our level isn't even hitting -30, so it's definitely low. So I'm going to grab my interface. This is where doing this with a second person is a lot easier. But what I'm going to do, can you zoom in on that camera guy? The knob right here. So what I'm going to do, let's assume we're recording a singer. We're going to have them sing their song. So Mary Had a Little Lamb. I don't know. I got to do something that doesn't have a copyright. Mary had a little, as they're singing, you want to bring the gain up. Mary had a little lamb, fleece was white as snow. Check 1, 2, yeah. Okay, so right there is a good signal. I would even bring it down a little bit more just so it's right between -18 and -12. And that actually, oh, by the way, if you can't hear the audio for some reason, over here, click Record Monitoring On, and you should be able to hear it. you should be able to hear it on the screen capture through this microphone now. And again, our audio level needs to be between -18 and -12. That's a good range. And where your input is and everything is better explained in the proper audio recording levels video, and also the gain staging video, which is later on in this playlist. But for now, we have our recording ready. Now, one thing I didn't do is I need to save this prior to hitting the record button. So I'm going to go to File, Save Project As, and then I can choose wherever I want to save this. Now, if by some chance you already hit record without saving the project, which I'm doing right now, I'm recording, you know, the level looks small. A lot of people will say, oh, well, how come you're not filling up the entire bar? That's perfectly fine. That's where you should be. Again, gain staging is kind of a difficult topic to talk about, but that's why I made that longer video about specifically gain staging, where you need to set the gain or the volume of your input. But just trust me, even though the waveforms on the soundbar look small, it's where they should be. So I'm going to stop this recording right now. And Reaper will actually give you the option, if you want to delete, let's say somebody messed up and you want to start to take over again right away, you can hit delete all or save all. And by the way, if you're recording, you hit space, hitting space again will automatically save it. So save all. And then if, again, you forgot to save the project, go to File, Save Project As, and we want to go to this option where it says Move all media into project directory, and then we're going to save our file our project wherever we want. And typically what I'll do is I'll save it within, okay, I'll just actually do this right here and put this microphone down because this is kind of getting in the way. I'm going to save this under new folder. So let's musician 543. So our musician's name, and then the song name. So we'll call this song, or we'll call it Mary Had a Little Lamb. And then I'll copy that. By the way, I press Control A and then Control C to copy. Double click the folder if you didn't go in there, and we'll call this Mary Had a Little Lamb Vocals. And so that's how you set up an audio interface and record a track for the first time. This has been Adam for RealHomeRecording.com.